And we must feel that we have a mission, which is to protect society, protect a way of life, not to do cybersecurity in real. We protect a way of living. People are using trains, they are using tramways, they are using people mover, and that is defining their way of living. So.
Hi, I'm Rourke Pollock, and this is the first season of the SecureTracks podcast, where we host rail industry leaders to talk about operational rail technologies and cybersecurity. In this episode, we'll be talking about getting cybersecurity embedded into operational rail tech environments. I'm really excited about today's conversation because we're talking to one of the big names in rail cybersecurity, Mr. Eddie Tisi from Alstom. Eddie is the current Vice President of Cybersecurity at Alstom. He is based out of Paris, France. Eddie has been in his current cybersecurity role for the last 5 years and has been at Alstom for almost 24 years. In his current role, Eddie is responsible for defining and executing the cybersecurity strategy and positioning for all of Alstom's products and solutions. Eddie, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us today.
Hello, thank you, Rourke.
We're excited to have you here, Eddie. So I think it'll be a great conversation.
I'm sure.
So one of the things, Eddie, I'm always curious about is how people get into cybersecurity space. And for you, for instance, you have quite the diverse background. If I'm correct, you have an educational background in math, literature, and psychology. So how did you go from that background into IT, cybersecurity, and what got you into the rail industry?
In fact, it came in twofold. So I started by mathematics, and one of my activity was to implement algorithm. So when you want to implement algorithm, you have to do programming. So start to program, to develop. That was in the end of the 80s, beginning of 90s. So at the time, you had to do a lot of things by yourself, and Linux was my best friend. So you had to be a little bit of a hacker, to create your own computing power. And that's where I learned a little bit the way to manage a system and to be close to it. So it's where you have the kind of a virus of being understanding how things are working. That was, I would say, the real initial world of hacker. And then I started to like those security things and understanding things. And I moved in my career up to the point where I joined Alstom to take care of IT, but I like railway a lot. And I managed to do processes in Alstom and to take care of how do we develop, how do we implement, how do we do system engineering, requirement management. And a good opportunity came up to come back to my first, I would say, initial passion, which was technology, IT, and cybersecurity. And then I came to be the Vice President of Cybersecurity for Alstom.
Got it. Yeah, we all take a little bit of a roundabout way to get to where we're at, but appreciate your viewpoints today. So, Eddie, let's dive into our first topic and talk a little bit about the state of rail tech security. I've heard you state in the past that safety is the protection of passengers and systems from unintended harm, while cybersecurity is the protection of people and infrastructure from intended harm. And for me, that statement is kind of the most concise and probably best distinction I've heard to describe the difference between safety and cyber.
Yeah, I would say it's fair to recognize that safety is the cornerstone of whatever we do in railway. But the nature of what is happening in front of us when it comes to cyber is totally different. Basically, when in safety, we protect ourselves more or less against ourselves. So error of design, error of implementation, misconfiguration. When you do cybersecurity, it's not at all this. Cybersecurity, you primarily try to protect yourself against external threats, intelligence with willingness, with objectives, and that makes a huge difference compared to when you do safety. And one of the major difference based on the nature itself of what you are trying to protect and against what you are defending is the fact that when you do safety, you define your protection, I would say, you implement it, you validate it, and then it is there for the next 1,000 years. Whereas when you do cybersecurity, because you address a moving threat, intelligent threat, in this case, you have no choice but to reassess and reevaluate and maybe to upgrade your defenses on a regular basis. So that's a major difference when you think about cybersecurity and safety.
Yeah, I think that's what people think. I think that's why most of us like working in cybersecurity. It's protecting systems from threats, from external threats, and even more so in the operational parts of industries like the rail industry. It is critical to all of our economies, and so I think we all enjoy the work for that reason.
Correct. I
So,
confirm.
yeah. So, Eddie, not too long ago, safety wasn't part of the rail design process. Probably before our time, to be fair. We both have a little bit of gray hair, but we're not that old. But it's now embedded throughout the entire industry. And if you think about safety as an analogy, where do you think we're getting with cybersecurity and embedding cybersecurity into these operational rail tech environments?
So I think that there is a couple of comparison and we take a couple of examples from what is happening in safety. But as I said before, there is major differences. And we know that the landing zone will be very similar for both. I mean, today you don't think about railway without thinking about safety.
Right.
Tomorrow you will not think about railway without thinking about cyber. And the basic reason for that is the basic components that we are using to build our railway system and to set up the rail tech environment are naturally exposed to cybersecurity threats. So
Right.
this is one of the reasons why, as a consequence, cybersecurity will become and is becoming one part of the DNA. It will start by standardization to have a clear, I would say, a way to exchange common language, common objective between all the stakeholders of the railway system. And then it will continue with skills, development of skills, specific products, specific, I would say, learning paths, career growth. All of that will come to consolidate the fact that now cyber is in the DNA of the railway activity.
Right. Right. Well, Eddie, if you look back, let's say we look back 2 years or so, how much progress do you think the industry is making over the last few years relative to cybersecurity, especially in the operational rail technology environments that we're talking about?
I will say to see progress, we need to have some kind of indicators. The first indicator is when you have events related to railway, when you have conferences, when you have a forum, you now have always a corner for cybersecurity. That was not true 2 years ago. Today, everything that is major event in cybersecurity, iNotrans, IT Train, whatever, there is a corner for cybersecurity, and that's good. The second important point is that you see that the CEO within this industry, so they can be asset owner, asset operator, technology providers,
Right.
OEMs, all those CEOs, they start to have that in their agenda with their board, with their executive committees, and they sometimes speak about it. So it's not now rare to have a CEO of an operator mentioning the fact that cybersecurity is becoming or is now one of the key topics that they look at their management level. You
Right.
see the same in the OEM, and I will take the example of Alstom. You can take Henri Poupart-Lafarge, you can take Jean-François Baudouin, which are key people and the leader and one of the president of the company. Those guys, they can speak about the strategy of Alstom on cybersecurity. That was not true a couple of years ago. And you go down in all the scales, all the levels that you have in the company, you will find people who are now, they understand better what they have to do, what is their contribution, what are the challenges. So if you want to see the progress made by railway when it comes to cybersecurity, you will see that now there is standards. So this means that the whole industry has embraced the fact that we need to do it. We start to have skills, we start to have communication, working groups, and within all the company, all the stakeholders, you have people now that have the mission to make sure that cybersecurity is becoming the DNA of the railway.
Right. Right. I know Austin's been doing this for a while, and you made some big investments in cybersecurity. What kind of are you seeing significant growth over the last few years in this space, especially being requested from operators?
So today, if one indicator, if it can be one, we started to structure our journey around 2018 with a small group of people, like 20, 25 people. Today, we are more than 350 people. So it shows the scale up that we had to do in the middle of the pandemic to address the requests coming from our customers.
Right.
And if I look now, any tender issued on signaling, rolling stock, turnkey project, maintenance services, whatever, is coming with the dimension of cybersecurity. So the evolution is visible. You can touch it, you can measure it. The expectation coming from the customers is also there. The point that we have to keep in mind, and I have to put both in the same sentence, is that we are a very long-term business. So meaning that the products that we are delivering today have been designed a couple of years ago. The systems that are entering in operation now, the project have started 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 10 years ago. So the real challenge for us is to really embrace the cybersecurity for the future, meaning that any new design that we do for the future product must include the basic of good hygiene and good principle of cybersecurity, but we absolutely need to make sure that we can protect our existing designs that we have already sold a couple of years ago or that we are putting in production now or selling now, because they will constitute the big part of the critical infrastructure of countries, states, cities.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Certainly the technology product life cycles are different between the rail systems and the cyber systems. So that's one challenge. Eddie, what do you see as the biggest driver today in getting cyber built into new infrastructure and rolling stock projects and not just new projects, but even brownfield projects?
I think that two elements are pushing now to pay much more attention to cybersecurity. The first element is something which is intrinsic to the railway product and to the natural evolution of our product. They are becoming more and more connected, made with more and more software. So you will not see any piece of a railway system without a certain level of software and connectivity. The digitalization is creating the right context for us to increase openness, to have more connectivity, so meaning to expose ourselves more. So by internally within the railway, the nature of what we are selling is changing, the complexity of what we are selling is changing. So you must start to embrace this cybersecurity journey. So that's for the internal part. And externally, more than before, railway is becoming a major factor in social, economic life of any country, city, or I would say group of cities. We talk about green, we talk about sustainable development, we talk about safety of passenger. Rail is and will remain for a long time the safest and greener way of transportation that you have in the world. So all of those factors, external and internal. External, we need more and more railway, more and more cities are growing, more and more people to be moved from A to B. The nature of what we are selling is now made of more and more components which are exposed. It's directly driving the fact that you need more and more cybersecurity in railway.
Yeah, I can certainly say I wish we had more high-speed trains in the U.S. instead of air travel. So, Eddie, one of the things you didn't mention that surprised me is the role of the regulatory bodies. I'm interested in your take on some of the new requirements, like the TSA security directives here in the U.S., the NIS security directives in Europe. How do you see them playing, and have they had a big impact or an immediate impact like the regulators, I think, want?
So rail is a highly regulated environment since it has been created, because you have life of people in your train, so you must be in a position to ensure and to secure these lives. So this means that regulators in all countries are playing a critical role. And they are playing a critical role because they set the rules. And we, as OEM, need to, because we are most of us international companies, we need to make sure that for the good of the industry, we are able to replicate those rules everywhere. So we expect from regulators two things. First, an understanding of our system, of our environment and the constraint. And second, I will say a time adjustment to understand by the nature itself of our activity on our business, that sometimes we need time for transformation. So if you look at what is happening currently, so you have the big evolution or revolution in Europe with the NIS2 directive, the Cyber Resilience Act, the Cyber Security Act. So those topics are coming now to a certain level of maturity. There is some topics which are okay, some are less okay, but we will have to address them going forward. So regulation in Europe is really pushing quite hardly, and we will see the regulators, the European bodies, giving some instruction on laws, by the way, by the end of the year. We see the same arriving in Americas, starting by USA, where in the USA you mentioned the TSA regulations, the 2 directives that we had over the last 2 years, and the future laws that is under preparation. And we are seeing also the agencies, the transit agencies, and more generally railway companies trying to organize themselves to anticipate a bit the regulation and make sure that they can anticipate and they can prepare themselves. So that's good. In the rest of the world, if you look at what is happening in APAC, in Asia Pacific, you see the major countries having already since sometime 1 decade some regulation in place, and they are trying to enhance those regulations. You look in America, so in Middle East, you will see in North Africa, you will see the same trend to by regulators taking over and making sure that they have described and defined the right level of criticality of the infrastructure, and then the level of security that they expect. So I would say globally, you will see everywhere a trend pushing toward, I would say, a better understanding of the system, pushing toward sometimes a shift of responsibility from the operator to the technology provider in terms of liability, I would say, long term on the security of the system. So we see that also. But you see also more, I would say, appetite, more willingness to embrace this journey from the operators and to organize themselves to do the right job. One of the points I have to mention is that you don't do cybersecurity and you don't protect yourself without having a certain level of investment, meaning that you need to dedicate resources. So you have people who have to be trained, specific skills. You may need to dedicate specific means, so specific, I would say, computer power, networks, systems, but also you need to have a little bit of investment in terms of money in this environment in order to make sure that it will be set at the right level and maintained over time at this level.
Yeah, agreed. Investment is certainly required on all parties, frankly. Eddie, this may be an unfair question because I might be asking you to criticize your customers. But are there things that, from a rail operator perspective, that today you think you'd like to see them asking more of in tenders and RFPs, or things that perhaps they're not asking for that you'd like to see?
I'll say that, and not being a criticism, is that most of the operators, they also start their journey. So they were used to receive from Alstom, Siemens, Ansaldo, Thales, CAF, whoever. It's a very electromechanical systems delivered from long-term projects where the quote-unquote IT, connectivity, software part were very minimal. Okay, so they build organizations, they build skills to manage the delivery and to manage the operation of that systems. Over the last decades, and because of all those reasons I have said before, and because they wanted to have more efficient, they wanted to have more operational system, we've introduced more and more new technologies in the system. And they need now to embrace that also. So on their side, we are pushing a lot of effort, and we are part of a UITP working group on cybersecurity, where we have drafted a document which is a guideline. How do you do a tender in this new age of cybersecurity? What do you need to ask? So we need operators to become a little bit more accurate in what they expect, to be a little bit more, I would say, to have facts in their request, to avoid to have a 100 norm saying you have to be compliant to all of that, because it is not helping to protect the system. And we expect that the industry will take a direction where will be more risk-based than compliance-based. I mean that we don't want to have people in front of us asking to tick boxes. You need to be compliant with all of that, ticking the boxes. We would like to have more discussions related to a risk. What is the level of risk I have today? Can I do reduction of this level of risk? And what is the level of risk I'm ready to accept and to take in my operation tomorrow? So that debate, this is, if we need to have something that has to be promoted and pushed, is really to have this culture of risk management instead of being too much, I would say, compliance base that will help a lot the industry to move forward and to make progress.
Right. Yeah. And we're seeing that with the more sophisticated organizations today. They're already there as far as risk-based approach to a lot of this. But the compliance ideas are pushing them, are pushing everybody as well. So, Eddie, let's move on to our second topic and talk about how rail tech systems are different and how we're starting to see some verticalization in this market space. I read somewhere that you expressed an opinion that operational rail tech systems are really unique, especially when compared to other industries. So I guess first, is that statement accurate? And second, maybe you can explain where you think the rail tech systems are so very different than some of the other industries.
So if I said it, it's probably accurate. No, but seriously,
point taken.
So seriously, I mean, if you step back a little bit and you look at what we talk about when we talk about rail tech, so we are facing systems which have been made over decades. So meaning that any railway somewhere has been built for during a certain number of years. So accumulation of layers of technologies which are of different nature, different edges, and different composition, I would say. You see the geographical spread. So meaning that when you take a train from A to B, any single inch between A and B needs to be protected. It's not like you take from airport A to airport B, any single inch to be protected, and you have equipment all along the line, meaning that you can have equipment spreading over thousands of kilometers. So you have a geographical spread, you have a mix of technology. Of course, you have this safety-related activity. So meaning that it exists in other systems like aviation and so on, but then they don't have the same issues that we have on some other criteria. But that's an important point. On the physical aspect, the fact that we are geographically spread is creating a big issue from the physical access. If you take a plane, a bus, a car, or a train, you will see some differences. So when you take a plane, it's very complex for you to be able to have access to the critical system of the plane. In general, you board, you go to your seat, and you are not authorized to go in the pilot cabin or to go under the plane. In trains, the physical access is very easy. So you can have access to all the critical components of the train easily. I mean, because they are the physical proximity. Okay, you are not far from them. Second, the rail stations are very open environments. Nobody will put you in jail if you touch a train. Having access to the tarmac or the runway of an airport and having access to the plane is in several countries something that you finish in jail if you do that. So we have, I would say, a very specific environment based on the regulation, based on the geographical spread, based on the mix of technologies that we are seeing, based on the criticality of the system on the highly regulated environment, which is created differences compared to several other environments. And we took time, when I'm saying that, to have a very in-depth conversation with our colleagues from Airbus Protect or people who are doing buses or cars in order to understand what was exactly the challenges that they were facing. Either they don't have the same kind of relationship with the customer. If you are in automotive, generally you have the customer is an individual buying one car. The power of influence of those people are not the same as the big railway operators that you have in railway, or in airlines. So we have a very, very specific environment. So this is why every time we are repeating that we need absolutely to create the cybersecurity that will be adjusted to those rail tech. It will be based on existing things because we are very happy to reproduce things that exist, but there is a dimension of it that we have to create for the future.
Yeah, agreed. And we're actually seeing this. I know that Gartner has been publishing lately and talking about the fact that cybersecurity in some industries is becoming much more verticalized, rail industry being one of those. And so they basically said that some of the cybersecurity solutions that are in the market, or even the combined solutions that like an Alstom would put together, are very verticalized for the rail industry. And given what you've just said about the uniqueness of these systems, how does this verticalization of solutions impact kind of your thinking about cybersecurity, and what should the operators, the rail operators, be thinking about when it comes to cyber for these operational rail tech systems?
Again, we come back to the nature of what we are doing. So railway is an industry of integration. So whatever is sold in railway is an integration of something. Because of this nature, we have very complex systems. So if we want to be efficient in cybersecurity applied to railway, it has to bring an added value for the people who are running the system, so which are mainly operators who are in charge to execute the activity and make sure that things are running well, and the maintainers who are in charge to maintain the level of security of the systems. So meaning that if you come with I would say a cyber solution, you will go nowhere, because in fact, you will lack the translation of there is a cyber problem to there is an operation problem. So what will be solved and managed by the rail industry will be operational problems. So there is a need for a verticalization of whatever we propose in terms of a cyber. It is because at one point in time, you want to have efficiency. You want to be able to detect something that speaks to the operators, that help him to react. There is no point to say, alert, there is something which is read somewhere, but you have to do what you define what you will do. There is an alert, this is read, and you need to stop the train, or you can't continue your journey, or you need to evacuate the passenger. So this is the thing that will be an added value for operation people who are operating railway, who are already well loaded, I will say, with alerts and managing crises on a daily basis. They need really to have something in their language, and that's why the verticalization is something that is happening and that will continue to happen, where you will need to have solutions which are as specialized as possible, giving you the visibility on your technology. And that's where the rail tech makes sense, in the sense that it's not only IT, it's not only OT, it's anything that you need to make your system, I would say, behave properly. So this will be made of classical, I would say, operational technologies or embedded system, real-time system, plus very classical IT components that you use for some other functions, which are absolutely necessary. A roadbook for drivers, the meteo, whatever. You may have a couple of information that you need to capture to process that are coming from equipment which are very close to IT. And on the other hand, you have a system which are real-time systems, safety-related, embedded. All of that is making your rail technology, and it is what you have to protect. And then you need to have the right vertical to protect this kind of a system.
Gotcha. Do you think the rail industry is big enough to support that kind of verticalization?
It's a fair question, but yes, because we have already supported some other verticalization in railway for safety or for some other things, where we have a dedicated component and dedicated things. So when it will come to secure the railway system, I believe that there is no reason that it's not possible.
Yeah, it's a good analogy to the safety systems. Got it. All right. Well, just recently, Eddie, I know you were on a panel at Cyber Senate, the Rail Cybersecurity Conference in Chicago. I know because I was there, but you spoke about fostering strategic partnerships in the rail industry, and I think some of your points there kind of dealt with this idea of rail cybersecurity specialization. Was there anything in that discussion about the vertical ecosystem that you would want to summarize as part of this conversation?
I think that it's common sense, but nobody will succeed alone, especially in cyber and in railway and cybersecurity for railway. That will be very complex to have one company or one solution being able to solve the issue. So once you have made these findings and you realize that you need to rely on some other people, then you need to define what are those people. And that's where the notion of partnership is coming. You don't need to have a new supplier. You need to have a partner that will be able to share risk with you, make some bet on the future, and adjust its technology to your need. And that's where partnerships are so important. And then that will enable verticalization, because as an OEM in railway, we don't master all technologies necessary for this verticalization. So we need absolutely to have partners and not only suppliers who will be able to help us in terms of developing what we are calling the rail tech cybersecurity.
Right. Yeah. Certainly, the whole industry needs to move forward in lockstep. One company or one part of the business can't drive the entire industry forward. Yeah. So let's move on to our last topic and talk a little bit about kind of where you see things going as we move forward. And if you think about the level of sophistication that rail operators are asking for today, it could be freight, passenger rail, public transport operators, or transit operators. How do you expect to see operators kind of up their game even more in the coming years? Let's talk 2, 3, 5 year window, whatever you think is realistic.
I will say that when we project ourselves in the future, we have always to keep in mind two things. There will be the new demands that will appear in 2 to 3 years, and there is the operation of the system which are under construction today. So the one which are under construction today, they will be delivered in 2 to 3 years, and we know exactly what is in those systems. So we know what exactly they will, what will be the demands on the operation mode in order to be able to run them and to operate them. And then there is whatever will be requested in 2 to 3 years in terms of a new feature, new security controls. The lesson learned by the operator, by the maintainer, by the installer, and by the OEM, the OEM who are developing and building those systems, is enormous. Over the last couple of years, we've learned a lot. Now we need to transform those lessons in specifications, in new procedure, operational procedures, new standards, in order to make sure that we are paving the way for a smooth development and a smooth integration of cybersecurity in railway. So as of today, what we are seeing is that the maturity coming from all the chain, so not only the asset owner, but also the operators, the regulators, the third party, has grown a lot, which means that for the next generation of products that we are building, the level of specification and the level of accuracy of the spec will be very good, and much better than today.
Right.
And that means also that for the systems that we will start to operate now and in the next years, have been designed a couple of years ago, there will be a huge work to be done in terms of adjusting those systems to the expectation of the new expectations. And that's where we are thinking in Alstom strongly that addressing the install base with the capability to enhance the security, reduce the level of risk, having regular, I will say, assessment, reassessment, evaluation, and then adjusting the mitigation plan is something that will be a very important activity for the industry in the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, you see the bigger challenge is how to keep up the installed base infrastructure with current cyber requirements.
Correct, yeah. Because we know that we will reassess our system regularly because contrarily to safety, cyber is never set once for all. We have to revisit it on a regular basis, meaning that we may have to adjust our mitigation plan. Concretely, it means that we may have to modify some software, to embed some new appliances, to add some zones or some controls. So this is something that we have to learn to do because today in railway, this is not at all the way we are working. So this has to be developed. This we need to have the right level of standards, the right level of ways of working, the RECs, the allocation of tasks and responsibility between asset owner, maintainer, installer, operator, technology provider. All of that is still in front of us in terms of a detailed definition and descriptions of, we say, efficient ways of working. So a lot to be done, but we start to have a lot of recs. We start to have examples, concrete examples of what is happening. So we need to walk the talk and make sure that we are grouping ourselves in committees, in work groups, and so on, to identify the priorities and then to make proposals so that we can move forward together.
Yeah, it sounds like from your perspective, Eddie, what I'm hearing is this is an area you think the rail integrators can really take the lead in the industry and help more so probably than the operators themselves because you're looking across all these customers.
I think that we both have a role to play, but that's true that when you are an integrator working across the board, across the globe, you see different posture, you see different situation, you see different threats, you see different solutions. So it's part of our duty, I will say, part of our responsibility to make sure that we leverage that and we bring back to the industry something, because if you step back on the situation, Alstom is one of the leaders, and so in some cases the leader of this industry, and this will last for the next decade. And so it's good for us, but on the other hand, we feel that there is a need for us to to reimburse the industry, so to put something in the industry. And we believe that the fact that we can see things across the globe on all the dimensions of railway, on all the various market segments, is an added value that we have and we can share with our colleagues, our competitors, of course, in specific working group and so on. But it's something that will help the industry to grow, and it's our best interest. Our best interest as one of the players of this industry is to have an industry mature on cybersecurity, where people can understand what they're asking, where people can understand that there is solutions that are working well, some solutions that are maybe not working well, and there is some effort of transformation that has to be shared between all the stakeholders, and starting by the regulators and ending to the installer or the maintainers that we have in the systems.
Right. Yeah, completely agree. Eddie, I know one of the topics that you're passionate about, and you kind of started talking about it a bit earlier, is the need to move towards more of a cybersecurity focused culture across the entire industry, the entire ecosystem. Now, where are we today in that regard, and how do you see that playing out over the next several years?
So railway has never been like some other industry where they were more exposed, like defense industry, aircraft industry, very, I would say, open or very exposed to defensive activity. Our main defensive activity was safety. So that was not a very challenging context in terms of aggression. We have a little bit of vandalism, but that was all. Cybersecurity is creating a new kind of threats, a new nature of threats, more or less invisible, because you don't see it like vandalism, you see it immediately. So we need to learn how to do that. There is a huge transformation which has started, which is touching everyone, all the stakeholders. I think that the good news is we did a lot. If I really compare what was the situation in 2015 and what is the situation today, really the culture of cybersecurity within railway has really started to be deployed. Now we still have a big challenge in front of us. It's to make sure that the relationship between cybersecurity and safety is well defined, and that there is no ambiguity. And we need to make sure also that a couple of role and responsibilities when it comes to maintaining the security, assessing the security over time, enhancing the defenses, those responsibilities for existing systems, sometimes quite old, is also, I will say, drafted and put in some RACI metrics that we can reuse on a regular basis to allocate tasks and to define a way forward.
Right. Yeah, certainly it becomes everybody's job, not just the cybersecurity personnel.
Correct.
Speaking of people, let's talk about talent for a minute. I don't know for a fact, but I can pretty much suppose that the rail industry is not seen by young tech-savvy workers as an attractive industry. How do you think we change that? How do we bring more talent into rail, and more specifically into securing these operational rail tech environments?
I think that one of the issues is that we have this image of steam trains with Far West or Western. So we still have this image. And if you go in some countries, you will see that the signal to announce that there is a railway in front of you, there is a track, is sometimes a steam train. So we need to go beyond that. And one of the simplest ways to go beyond that is simply to show what we are doing. So today, we in the industry are quite shy when it comes to explaining to people what we are doing. Nobody knows that since more than 20 years, we have automatic trains. So meaning that trains that can drive themselves alone. And they are transporting millions of passengers every year. It's a couple of years that there is a car that can do a couple of meters alone, and it's on all the TV. We have trains that are doing that since decades, and nobody knows. Nobody knows that there is from 100 to 500 computers on board of one train, with 3, 4, 5 networks, with switches, with antenna, Wi-Fi, GSM, that we have inertia central in our system to localize our trains. Braking systems are very complex. Imagine that you have to brake a system which is running at 400 kilometers by hours, 300 kilometers per hour, which is a weight of 400 or 300 or 400 tons. This is very complex system to brake our trains. to accelerate our trains. You take a high-speed train, it is a small wheel in metal on a small rail in metal, and you put on that 1,000 tons of equipment, and you put people on that, and then you launch that at 300 kilometers per hour, and you need to stop that in less than 2 kilometers. So it is something which are very, very challenging. We need very strong algorithm. We have people who are doing artificial intelligence. We have people who are implementing machine learning in our system to ease the deployment. So technology is there. We were a little bit shy to talk about it. Autonomous trains arriving everywhere help us to show off, to present things that we are doing. So I think that it is one of the elements is to make sure that it is understood what exactly we are doing and the tech nature of what we are doing. The second element is if we want to address the challenge of cybersecurity when it comes to resources, we absolutely need to have the training factory. So we need to be able to reskill people who are already in railway, because we were talking about a rail vertical, about a rail tech. It means that there is a dimension of railway to be efficient in your job if you're a cybersecurity person. So then that's true that it becomes the duty of the railway company and the UAM to make sure that we have the right level of training, exposure of people which are coming from IT, coming from pure cybersecurity, coming from other industry, that they can become tomorrow the railway cybersecurity engineers that we need to protect the rail tech.
Yeah. I love the idea of promoting the high-tech nature of what's going on in the industry. I think sometimes we're not proud enough of what we're doing, and we don't promote it nearly enough.
Yeah, okay.
I love your examples, so very much appreciated. So Eddie, let's try to wrap things up. As somebody that is basically responsible for helping build rail tech systems, working with Alstom, what last bit of advice would you give somebody in a rail operator, that it could be a CISO or somebody that's responsible for cybersecurity? What last bit of advice would you want to leave them with if they're listening?
I'll say that keep in mind that we do first railway. So even if I'm a cyber person in railway, my job first is to make sure that the railway will work. So we need really to think about the objective. Why do we do that and not what we do? Because if we focus too much on the technology, on the solution, we may lose the objectives that we have. I said to my team recently that I read that somewhere, I forgot where. We feel that, and we must feel that we have a mission which is to protect society, protect a way of life, not to do cybersecurity in rail. We protect a way of living. People are using trains, they are using tramways, they are using a people mover, and that is defining their way of living. So our mission is to protect that. So then once you have that in mind, if you are the CISO of an operator, okay, you will start to make hierarchy and prioritize your problems. And again, think about the risk. We talk about people transported or goods transported. We need to have the risk in mind. And then we try to address those risks. And if I'm a CISO in a company, in an operator or regulator, and I want to make a point and to make a difference on the railway industry, the best thing is to keep in mind what exactly we are trying to do and what we're trying to regulate or what we're trying to protect. And then you will see that things will become much more simple to understand.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic way to wrap things up, Eddie, which is our job as an industry is to support and protect a way of life that people rely on trains every single day. And it's our job to continue to protect that.
And when you were saying we have this skill gap on how do we attract talent, I will say we don't really propose a cybersecurity job. We propose a mission, which is not the same. So people need to embrace that. They need to feel that what we do is not as simple as, okay, I am the CISO of whatever company. You are the CISO of an operator with transporting people. You are a cybersecurity engineer in a company with making trains or making signaling system. You are part of a third-party partner who is developing a solution to protect railway. That's not a simple job. That's really a mission that you have to fill. If you want to understand it better, go and take the metro and be in the metro, see people, they are happy to be in the metro. I don't know people who have phobia of railway transportation. People can be sick in car, they can be sick in plane, they can be sick in boats, but you feel insecurity when you are in the train. You feel okay, that's okay. I will arrive at destination. And we put people in train without drivers since 20 years, and people are still happy. So I think that
Yeah.
our mission is that, and if we think about it like that, yes, we will be able to overcome the hurdle of new people joining, the hurdle of recruitment, the hurdle of skill development, because when you have a mission, it's much more simple for you to do efforts.
Hallelujah, Eddie. I think selling a mission is a lot easier than selling people on a job.
Correct.
Completely agree. I think that's the way people think these days. 100% agree with it. So keep preaching. I'm right behind you. Eddie, if somebody wanted to get in contact with you or follow you, are there social media platforms you're active on, or what's the best way for somebody to get in contact with you?
Several ways. So I am posting from time to time on LinkedIn or Twitter. So and I like sometimes to repost or to share some articles. I am following the Alstom account on Instagram, a bit less than on the other social media. And of course, we have an email address. So don't hesitate if you have an email to exchange, a discussion. I like discussing and exchanging on railway. So I'm always open to to answer to questions or to have conversation with regulators or with operators or with whoever is interested in understanding what is happening in railway. More than welcome for a chat.
Awesome. Perfect, Eddie. Well, Eddie, thank you so much for joining us today. I think it was a great conversation. I'm sure people may want to follow up with you. We appreciate your time. And for our audience that is listening today, thank you for listening. That's the end of our show today. And until next time, keep those tracks secure.
Thank you. See you.